Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by Legacy FC light heavyweight James McSweeney. James, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I look forward to the interview.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for doing it. James, in your last fight at CFA 10 back in March, you defeated Dion Starring by first-round TKO due to a head kick and some punches. How pleased were you with your performance in the fight?
It was a good fight, and the game plan was pretty much down to a T. I just caught him earlier than I thought I was going to catch him. I just went out there to initiate, just to see where he is. I watched his fight against Daniel Cormier, and I knew his kick defense wasn't so good. I just went out there to put a little test on him, and then I just caught him with a head kick and just reacted.
Talk me through the finish there. Was this something that you had seen going into the fight, that you were going to be able to catch him with that head kick, or was this something where you were just kind of testing the waters to see what he would do and how he would react, and you were just able to catch him and put him away?
Well, actually, I was testing the waters with the low kick and the kick to the body. I threw the right cross, left hook, low kick, and he didn't defend that. And then as he tried to push me in front of the push kick, the teeth, he didn't defend that either. So I was like, okay, we'll go to the head kick. And I remember watching his videos against Daniel, and he wasn't so great at kick defense. So I threw the right cross, left hook, fake, threw the head kick, and caught him perfect. So I was going to do that during the fight. It just, subconsciously, I must have had it in my mind, and I was going to do it at some point during the first round, but it just happened in the opening 30 seconds, and once I caught him, that was it. I knew it was over.
How satisfying was it to go out there and get a KO early in the first round, because your fight previous to that was back in October of 2012, you fought in Sweden, and that was a fight where you went into that fight not 100%. You had like an 104 degree temperature. You were very ill going into that fight, and the fight didn't go your way. It's probably a fight that you shouldn't have taken, being in the condition that you were, but coming back and getting a win and having an impressive knockout, how satisfying was that to get that taste out of your mouth from the Sweden fight?
Yeah, it was hugely satisfying because, as you said, you got your information perfect. The Swedish fight, I was very sick on the day of the fight. I had the whole trip was pretty much disaster from the minute we got to the airport. It took me I think we had 5 connections or 4 connections to get to Sweden. It took me 29 hours. And then when we got there, it wasn't what they said it was going to be. The food wasn't there for us, and there was just a whole row of mistakes on the promotions part, and it just went on and on and on. And then obviously I was sick as well. That didn't help, and they put a lot of pressure on me to take that fight. And I mean, I'm my own man. I don't blame them. They wanted me to fight their promotion, of course. It's my decision. I went out there and fought. I should have even done that, but it was my mistake. And so to go out there and fight Dion. When I came back from Sweden, I was on such a low. I had a good talk with my coaches, and to be honest, I was very down because I felt I had a good training camp for that fight in Sweden, and I was very disappointed at that loss. And I was almost one-sided. I was like, I've almost had enough of this. I've had enough of this career. I just want to go and do something else. I was that pissed off. But then we had a good talking with my coaches. They brought me back down. I was just reacting on emotions, and I would have reversed that decision, I'm sure, a day later. So they were smart. They got me a good fight against a good opponent in Dion Starring, and to go out there and implement the game plan to a T, it just revealed all the hard work I had been doing over the last 2 years is starting to pay off, and it was perfect. And it's exactly the same with this situation with this fight. I can't wait to go out there and just show everybody what I've been doing, what I've been learning, and the type of fight I am today.
Now, going forward, August 23rd, you're going to be fighting for Legacy Fighting Championships. It's the main event for Legacy FC 22. How's training been going for the fight?
It's a good fight with Paul Buentello. I'm very for the fight, and I've watched all his videos. We used to train together a few years ago, so I know how Paul works. I know what he does. I know his strengths. I know his weaknesses. Paul hasn't evolved much over the last few years. He's pretty much the same character he always was. If I stay disciplined the way I know I'm gonna, it can be a relatively easy fight for me.
You're training your jiu-jitsu with Robert Drysdale. He's your jiu-jitsu coach. Just curious, who are some of your other coaches that are helping you not only get ready for this fight, but just when you're training in general?
Oh, in general, I've been using Freddie Roach as one of my boxing coaches. I also use Joe Trujillo as a boxing coach. He comes in from Denver to help me as well. I go out to LA and work with Freddie. I've got my Thai boxing coaches here. Junebug, I use him. I also go to Holland as well to use my other Thai boxing coaches that I was a kid, Lucian Carbin. Also, I've got Robert. I've used Mike Van Arsdale for some wrestling, and generally on a weekly basis, I work with Carl Griffin on a Friday, and do wrestling with Kyle as well. But I mean, most of my grappling Monday, Wednesday, Friday is with Robert. We get in numerous amount of rounds in our gym with numerous guys that come into our gym from out of town. We get so much fresh input into our gym from so many people coming in. It's really amazing to work with so many high-level guys on a daily basis. It really helps your level go through the roof now. I've been here for nearly 2 years now, and I mean, working with Robert 3 days a week, every week for the last 2 years, you just can't help but get better, or you just get smashed every single training session. And you know, no one likes to get smashed every training session, so you can't help but improve and get better, and I certainly have.
Yeah, you've been very vocal about how Las Vegas has done wonders for you, like you mentioned with the training that you're getting there. Just curious, I know it's old news, it's been old news for a while, but why did you decide to leave the other training that you were getting? You were working with Jackson's for a while, you were working up in Colorado for a while. Why did you decide to leave there to go to Vegas?
Well, I left Denver, Colorado. I moved from Jackson's to go and work, to go and train and work at a garage, which was with Trevor Whitman at the time. And there was a lot of heavyweights there. Me and Rashad both made the decision that we were going to go from Jackson's to there. And then Rashad went on to do his own thing over in Black Zillions in Miami. So I kind of stayed, and I was there at Garage, and I feel like I was doing okay there. But to be honest, it was a very awkward situation between me and the coach. We never really saw eye to eye, and there was a lot of different things that went on behind the back door of that situation. But long story short, he let me down a week before my UFC fight. Actually, the day before we were about to fly, he told me he wasn't coming, and I fired him. And I went on and moved on to, at the time, it was a hard situation to deal with, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
And what exactly brought you to Las Vegas? Why did you decide to go there rather than, maybe following Rashad to Black Zillions? Why did you decide to stick with Vegas?
Well, Rashad was off doing his own thing, and we had separated. Our friendship had got more space between it. I wasn't a fan of Miami in general, and to be honest, I felt I needed to go where was best for me and my fit. And I'd heard great things about Robert Drysdale. We hadn't officially met, but through the industry, everyone I'd ever spoken to had said, if you ever get a chance to work with this guy, I knew Robert's main hub, his gym was here. So I flew in for the day. I got my house sorted out in a day, and I went to Robert's gym, and we connected, and I became Robert's striking coach, and he became my ground coach, and it's been a perfect fit ever since.
You mentioned you're working as a striking coach for Robert Drysdale. How's that been going? Because, we know that he's working with you, but we don't really see it. I mean, that's just a credit to how great his jiu-jitsu is, but how is his striking? How is it coming along?
His striking is coming along fine. He's working every day trying to get better at his striking. I mean, and if you guys ever got an opportunity to see him in the gym, you would see, wow, he's striking it has come on leaps and leaps and bounds. And even in his last fight, he tried to go out there and just grapple and take the guy down. He couldn't take him down. It was his striking that got him the takedown. We worked on a fake right cross left hook, and that was what caught his opponent and dropped him and got over the takedown to finish the fight. And so he's been using it in his last fight. The 2 fights prior to that, when he was working with me, he went out there and just grappled and got the victories. But now he's getting more confident. Now he's starting to realize that, at a higher level he goes, he has to start throwing punches and kicks. You're not just going to be able to go out there and shoot and take everybody down. These guys are so concerned about his grappling. They're not going to let him in any hands, feet until he starts punching. And Robert's fully aware of that. And, we work on it 3 days a week together to make sure. He's come on leaps and bounds. He's doing really well.
Besides Robert Drysdale, I've also seen you work with Matthew Riddle. Besides those two guys, who else are you working with?
I've got another guy right now that's helping me. I'm working with. His name's Mikkel. He trains. He's from Denmark. He fights he's in the Bellator tournament for 185. I've got a whole field of guys that I'm working with on and off that come in. I've worked with Vitor Belfort when he comes in from out of town. He comes back to Vegas. He works with me. To be honest with you, like over the years, I think I've pretty much worked with most people at one stage or another. GSP, Nate Marquardt, Shane Carwin. I've pretty much worked with everybody at one stage or another, like I say. So, with my striking realm, if I'm in town and people come here, they like to use me or help them out. So I've worked with Jake Ellenberger as well. He comes in out of town quite a lot to my gym to train. Hold pads for him as well. So I try to share, and they try to help me as much as we can. And in the industry, we try and help each other as much as possible. But they're all cool guys and all work hard. So.
When you're going through your training, obviously you have such a head start on the striking because that's what you were doing for a very long time is Muay Thai and kickboxing. But when you're working the other stuff, how, in terms of percentages, how much do you work the other stuff? Is it everything's equal? Do you work more with jiu-jitsu, more with wrestling, or is it pretty much all the same? You just sprinkle it in at different times. Like, could you explain how you train?
I would say Thai boxing and jiu-jitsu is my two most actually Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, and strength conditioning are the three realms that are exactly the same. I work all three of them 3 sessions a week each, and then I wrestle twice a week. But a part of our grappling, we wrestle also, so it's hard to say a part of that, Then I have my boxing that comes in. I box at least once a week. And then if I've got like last week, I had my boxing coach come in from Denver. We worked 4 or 5 days in a row just because he was here for 4 or 5 days. I wanted to maximize my time with him. It's pretty much equal, I guess, when you look at it from hindsight. And that's the thing, you have to work completely equal. And before, because of my striking was so dynamic and my main concern. But the thing is, I had to learn over the last 4 to 5 years to learn to strike different. In K1 or Thai boxing, you can't strike the same as you do in MMA. The distance is completely different. Your level changes are different, and there's certain combinations you can throw in MMA that you can't throw in Thai boxing, and vice versa. And it was a pretty long learning curve for me. And mistakes I made in fights was that learning curve. But to be honest, now I feel like I've got it down, and I'm fully understandable. It's very hard. It's very rare that I ever get taken down in the gym now, and I work with a lot of the high guys. And if I do get taken down, I'm usually looking for that submission, or I get back to my feet. So I feel like I train completely complete. So there's no part of this fight coming up with Paul that I have any worry about whatsoever. There's no point. He can't beat me standing up. He can't beat me on the ground, and he's not going to beat me wrestling. So I really don't have a concern for this fight.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really realize that striking in MMA, it's like you just can't come from kickboxing and then just be the greatest in striker in MMA because of like you mentioned, you got to change your level. You can't be so high in your stance. You got to have a lower stance to defend those takedowns, and you can't throw certain combinations because you might get clinched or you might get taken down. When you were coming in to MMA from the striking world, what were some of those main problems that you were having, if you could elaborate more on that?
Well, the problem would be that every time I sat down on my strike, they would shoot on me. My distance was too close, because if you look at a K1 fight or a boxing fight or a Thai boxing fight, people stand so close together, and you're so close to being taken down. But if you watch an MMA fight, the distance is completely different. The level changes are different. The combinations are completely different. The foot placement is different. There's a whole world. Until people have fought at a very high level in stand-up and then tried to transfer over to MMA, they never know. Like when I was out in Australia, I got offered to fight against, it's terrible, I forget his name now. Doug Viney. Doug Viney was a very good K1 guy, been around for many years. He even fought in the Olympics boxing for New Zealand. He represented his country in boxing. And his first MMA fight, he called me out. He wanted to fight me. And I said, yeah, I'll take the fight. I was like, oh, I know, but his stand-up is good, and he boxed, and he was in the Olympics, and blah, blah. I said, yeah, but you don't understand. It's a completely different realm in MMA. And I know the path that he's on, and I know what he has to go through to get good at MMA through his stand-up. And he's not there yet. It's his first fight. So I went out there, I beat him up a bit standing up, I took him down and submitted him, I think, under a minute. And so it's not an easy road for people that you've had such a stand-up game for so long. So, it takes a lot of adjusting. A lot of adjusting.
In mixed martial arts, when guys cover up, not a lot of the guys who are, inflicting the damage are attacking the body as much. I mean, there are guys who do it, but not as much as you would see in a boxing or kickboxing. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because of the small gloves, and when you cover up, there's less of your head that's exposed, and guys just continue to go for the head, or is there something else there? Since you're a high level striker, why do they do that?
It's a little bit of both. It's one thing is the distance thing again. It's usually in MMA the distance is a little bit further, so it's harder to get to the body. The guys that have got it down, do get to the body, I've usually pressed the action and they're very close and they're waiting for the guy who's usually a bit tired or taking a bit of punishment first. So they're very confident in getting that body strike off. But it does take time. It does take time. With the small gloves, you can make a good body shot, but like you said, it does leave a lot of openings down there as well. With a big glove, if you could take a small shot in the temple with a big glove, you can't take a small shot in the temple with a small glove. You're going to go down. So it's a complete, it's risk for reward. And some people are just not very, in MMA, I mean, they're just not very confident in their body shots or in their striking as a whole. So, it's very much it's a catch-22 situation. It's risk for reward. Unless they've got it down, it's a dangerous thing to do.
How about the surface of fighting? Because when you're fighting Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, you're fighting in a ring. Now in mixed martial arts, most of, but not all the organizations, but a good majority of them use the cage. Was that an adjustment for you to learn how to cut that off? And is that an adjustment that your students who come over from kickboxing or Muay Thai have to learn? Is that part of the learning curve? Is the surface that's being fought in?
The only thing you have to learn about, it's not so much about the cage, but you have to learn that when you, against a ring, you have that motion, you have that extra 6 to 12 inches bounce in the ropes, so you can still miss shots. If you're against the ropes and someone's throwing shots, you can still lean back and you can still have more variety of movement. But when you're against that cage, you have no movement. You are stuck. You are there, and it's and the shape of the cage is not very helpful to get you out. So, there is a little bit of adjustment to be made, but it just comes in ring craft. If you spend enough time in the cage sparring, you'll get it down pretty soon. If you've already got ring craft on a ring, you'll pretty much get it down with a cage. But, it's a little adjustment, but it's not a major issue.
What's harder to learn for you? Is it the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu?
It's not what's tougher to learn. Wrestling is harder on your energy, for sure, because even drilling wrestling, like if you go to a class in Euro, even drilling wrestling is like constantly taking people down, constantly being taken down, picking humans up and slamming them. Everything is like lifting, hard work in wrestling. Wrestling is probably one of the hardest, I think, energy-wise sports in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Especially in MMA, it's harder than boxing. It's harder than Thai boxing, I think. But then again, if a guy's wrestled since he was 10 years of age, he'll probably say it's easy. So it's probably what more you're used to. Coming from a striking realm, wrestling is hard, but jiu-jitsu is okay. It's not as hard on the energy, but it's very technical and smart. You have to be smart, and they both have different varieties and to learn. But I think on the energy side of things, wrestling is definitely the toughest.
James, how did this fight with Legacy all come together? Is it as easy as, well, you've been hanging around there for a little while now because you've been cornering Robert Drysdale for all those fights, so there is some sort of familiarity with the organization. Is it that, or was it just Paul Buentello needed an opponent and they called you up and you said yes? How did the fight come together?
The fight came together. I was actually preparing for another fight in Asia, in Asia, and that fight got postponed once. And then that fight then got cancelled after it got postponed. Then I was available to fight. We had signed a multiple fight deal with that company, which is exclusive. And when that fight got cancelled, we stressed our view to the company that we work for and said that, we haven't fought now for like 4 or 5 months. We need to fight. We've been preparing for 2 months for this fight, and it hasn't happened. And they were good enough to listen to me and allow me to take a fight outside of their organization. So we put it out there, and literally within an hour later, we got the call from Legacy saying, do I want to fight Paul Buentello? My manager actually agreed to the fight before he even asked me. He knows my character. He knows I don't turn down fights. And he said, oh, James, I've got the fight for you. I said, okay, cool, when is it? He said, 4 weeks, you're going to fight Paul Buentello. I said, okay, great, thank you. Who for? He said, Legacy. I said, all right, thank you very much. So that was pretty much how it went down. It was just as simple as that.
So this is just a one-off with Legacy?
Unless later on down the line, the company that I'm signed with allowed me to take a fight outside. If Legacy need me to fight and they want me to fight and offer me the money that I fight for, then yeah, I'll fight for anybody. I really don't mind. I mean, this is what I do for a living. This is how I support my family. So I really don't have I only fight for this company. I only fight for that. If I'm not fighting and I'm allowed to, and the company that I'm signed with allows me to fight outside of their venue, and Legacy offer me something, I'll definitely take it again. Legacy is a good promotion. They've got good television, and I know they run it, from being there with Robert, they run a very professional show, good production, and they always pay their fight as well. So I have no cause for it. It's fine.
You fought 4 times in 2012. You fought 6 times in 2011. Is that what you're hoping for the remainder of the year, to try to get between that 4 to 6 fight range to close out 2013?
I'd like to fight as regularly as possible if I could. That's why we were so frustrated with. I was meant to fight I fought in March, but I was meant to fight in May. That didn't happen. Then they offered me a fight in, I think it was August, and that fight got postponed till September. Then as we were getting closer, then that fight got cancelled, and then it was like, okay, it's like, this is ridiculous. I need to fight. I can't just keep sitting around waiting for this or that. This opponent pull out. We can't get you another opponent. I need to fight. I have to, provide for my family. This is what I do, and I would fight as regularly as possible. I'm hoping straight after this fight I can fight again in October.
Now, earlier you mentioned that Paul Buentello, who you're going to be fighting on August 23rd, you feel that you're better in every area of the game than he is. Why do you feel that way? Do you feel it just because you've worked with him in the past and you've trained with him in the past and you kind of know his style, or do you think it's just because we haven't really seen him evolve? I mean, he's kind of been the same fighter for the past couple of years. Is it more that, or is it more the previous training experience you had with him?
Well, it's both. It's both. When we used to spar together, he just used to box. And when you see him fight, he just boxes. And he doesn't know how to defend kicks. He doesn't know how to defend takedowns. When he gets on his back, he just lays there flat. Paul's a tough guy. That's Paul's biggest strength. He's tough. Once, I've seen so many tough guys get knocked out. It's not the end of the world. Toughness is not a quality of fighting in my eyes. It's not something you can polish and become good at. You're just tough. Okay, great. If you're good guys with a load of skills and you're tough, then that's different. Paul doesn't really have a whole arsenal of skills. I mean, he has a nice jab, he has a looping overhand right, and when he's backing out, he throws an uppercut. That's Paul Buentello to a T. That's it. He likes to fight at his pace, and watch him against only for Alistair over in Strikeforce, and Alistair was like 220 pounds. The young Alistair, before he got big, it was a very dismal performance, and when you see other performances since then. Any fight he's ever had, when he's gone aboard to win or whatever, it just haven't been anything to write home about. You've just seen no involvement whatsoever. So obviously he's training in the gym where he's a big fish. He's not listening to his coaches if he does. I know his old coaches, Mike Van Alsdale, who's a personal friend of mine, and has been coaching me through wrestling and giving me a little insight on how Paul thinks and what Paul does. And it's very simplistic, to be honest. No fight's ever easy. Every fight can always go either way, but to be honest, if I go out there and use the tools that I've been preparing with, it's just a matter of time before I either choke him out, knock him out, or he just wants to get out.
Now, both of you guys are both strikers, although it's kind of a different style. You're more of a kind of polished, technical K1 style striker, I guess you could say, and then Paul Buentello is more of a boxer, brawler guy, I guess you could say. Is that where you expect the fight? Do you expect the fight to be mostly on the feet?
I really can't say exactly where the fight's going to go, to be honest. It's it's just how I feel during the fight, whether I'm going to take it standing or I'm going to take it to the ground. I really don't know. We just see how it goes. I mean, it's to the point just during the stand-up fight that I feel that Paul is doing okay. He's doing better than I expected. Then I'll take him down. Maybe maybe I'm beating the hell out of Paul stand-up. He wants to take me down. Who knows? You might want to come out and prove to everybody that, hey, I've been working ground now too. His whole mindset could have changed. People change one day to the next, let alone one fight to the next. So I just train complete with everything, and all I know is that I'm prepared to every single realm that this fight could possibly go. I'm more than prepared to be happy there. So I really don't mind. You know, if he wants to take me down, I take him down. It'll all be down to the day. I have my game plan in mind, and we're going to implement it. And on the day, everyone's going to see what I'm prepared to do.
Your professional MMA record is 11 wins with 10 losses. That record on paper doesn't really seem that impressive, but you know, when you do some research and go into it and see the guys that you fought, it actually doesn't tell the whole story. So what does your MMA record fail to show?
Well, there's 6 fights on my record that is not even on there. There are 6 wins that we actually presented the shirt of that never got updated. They said that 2 of them were in unsanctioned countries, and then there was other fights that they just, I don't know why I gave them the videos, they just never updated my record for me. Even when I was in the UFC saw my record and they changed it themselves rather than Sherdog, but Sherdog still to this day doesn't seem to ever give my DVDs back, and second of all, never update my record. So to be honest, like for me, my record for me, I don't really, as a fighter, I don't think fighters really care about records. I go out there and I fight, you know, and I know that any loss I've ever had, I've always gone out there. I've never gave up. I've always gone back to the gym the very next day and started learning again. I never become a master overnight. I'm not the fastest learner, but you know what? I work hard and I don't give up, and I continue this process until I get what I want. I wasn't overnight successful in kickboxing, but success came. Same in Thai boxing and same in the K1 realm. Eventually I was very successful towards the end. So, and I feel the same in MMA. I'm going to continue my path. I'm going to make sure I get the wins I need, and I'm going to keep learning the way I need to learn. And if you look at my record, the last I don't know, 7 or 8 fights were all victories, apart from the one loss I had in Sweden. And I'm not going to make no excuses. I was sick, but it is what it is. You know, I was sick, and I did make a mistake in taking that fight. I should never have done it. I learned from that, and I will never do it again. You know, because unfortunately nowadays records do count. You know, and companies do look at your record when they're going to pay you, and people do look at it. So it does stand for something. But it doesn't mean much to me, to be honest. Like, if I look at a fighter's record, I look how he fights. I don't care if he won or he lost.
The UFC is coming to England in October. Are you hoping that, you know, should you get a win here in August, that you'll be on that card if some 205-pound fighter should happen to go down and maybe step up on short notice? Is that kind of what you're shooting for?
I would love to. I mean, you never. It's not something that's in my control. But I keep in good stead with the UFC. Obviously, I train a lot of guys that are in the UFC, and I have to go to a lot of UFC fights. And you know, if the opportunity was to arise, and I could, for sure, I would jump on it. And I'm going to make sure that I'm definitely in shape and ready to go. If the opportunity does come, if someone does get sick or does pull out, I'm going to be ready. So that's definitely something I can guarantee. If they need me or not, I can't say. But yeah, I will definitely be ready if they do.
Are you allowed to take a fight if the UFC calls? Because I know you said that you had a contract with an organization in Asia that was exclusive. Is
I am contracted, but to be honest, if they're not going to use me, if I'm sitting on the sideline, I think it would be very you know, unjustified for them to not use me and then don't allow no one else to use me too. You know, I think that would be bad too. You know, so I'm hoping that wouldn't be the case.
James, there's Muay Thai in Las Vegas, Lion Fight. They're doing some good things. There's also Glory Kickboxing, which is coming to the United States, and they've had some good shows since they've come to the U.S. Are you interested in maybe fighting some kickboxing or some Muay Thai if they were to come and offer you, or are you just solely focused on MMA right now?
No, to be honest, I would love to take a fight in Thai boxing again, or Muay Thai for sure. Because I've been to the Lion Fights and I've been down there. I know the owner of the show, and they're a great organisation, and they pay well. And we'd met before he gave me his card. If there was a show and there was a good opponent they could get me, I would love to take a fight Thai boxing. Just for, you know, Thai boxing was my first love, and I'm never going to say never again. You know, I only left Thai boxing and K1 because of money. I left K1 at that time wasn't paying their fighters. We were going out there and fighting, and we were waiting forever to get paid. So it was very hard, you know. So I had to make a decision and go where the money was. I had a family to support. So, but I've always had a love for K1 and Thai boxing, and I would love to go out and do a Thai boxing fight again for sure.
Have they said anything to you? Have you talked to them at all? Because it just, it kind of makes sense for you to be in talks with them because, they're based out of Las Vegas. That's where you're at. It kind of makes sense. Have there been any dialogue between you and them?
Like I said, I was actually at some of my guys from my class that were doing a smoker here, and I was cornering them, and then the owner of Lion Fights was there. He come up and shook my hand and said hi and gave me his card. I shot them an email, but I actually didn't get a reply back. I don't know who the email went to or whatever, but at that time I just got offered my next fight, so I wasn't solely concerned on chasing anybody to put pressure for it. But I am, I have been thinking about it, and I would like to do a fight, so if the connection was made, then yeah, for sure.
James, on August 23rd, how do you defeat Paul Buentello?
Easily.
James, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Yeah, I'd just like to say to all the fans, thank you very much for supporting me as always, and whether you love me or hate me, I always try to go out there and put on a good fight, and August 23rd I will be. If you guys want to keep up to date, just follow me on Twitter, at McSweeney MMA. Thank you very much.
James, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck August 23rd at Legacy FC 22 against Paul Buentello.
Thank you very much.